I recently Googled, is charging an EV cheaper? Hello. A lot of people will tell you that it's cheaper to fill up with petrol than it is to charge an EV. Well, this is no longer the case. And nowadays, people are more likely to say, well, it's all very well if you can charge at home, but what about the millions of people who can't charge at home? Well, this got me thinking, if I was to move, I've owned a Tesla Model 3 for 3 years, would I go back to a petrol car? Please stick with me in this video and I'll let you know what conclusions I come up with. Thanks very much for joining me today, friends, to the Jen and Nigel channel. Or is it Nigel and Jen? I can't remember. Hope you can subscribe and like, and please leave any comments down below. Okay, so the narrative on EVs is that they're very expensive, it's difficult to charge them, and it's very expensive. And there are good examples of all these being true. But in the 3 years I've owned a Tesla Model 3, I found that not being the case. But what if I couldn't charge at home? What would I do then? A lot of the motor magazines regularly do tests comparing petrol models with electric models, and there aren't that many examples. They often tend to be the more expensive legacy automakers. I can think of one they did on a very expensive BMW, and they went to the most expensive charger and they drove it up the motorway at 70 miles an hour, and they found that the petrol was cheaper. But of course this is deceiving because most people don't charge at 75p a kilowatt hour. I recently Googled, is charging an EV cheaper? And the answer that came up was charging an electric car at home is less than half the price of using public charging stations. And both are cheaper than filling up with petrol. Well, that's interesting because until quite recently, most of the answers would be, yes, it's cheaper if you charge at home, but not if you can't charge at home. So I'm very, very pleased. So what do you do if you can't charge at home? Well, you've got to, I would suggest you go to the ZapMap app, and it will show you what is available in your area. You don't need a fast charger, you need a slower charger, maybe overnight or in the afternoon, that will fill you with charge close to your home. And the ZapMap app will give you all that information, and you can see how much they are. There's also ZapMap Home, and these are people who have excess electricity. Maybe they have solar panels and they'll pass on the advantages. Now you have to contact them. There could be someone down the road from you. More and more apartment owners are being encouraged to put in chargers. There's government grants for them to do it. And if you think of it, let's say if I was going to move to where I can currently charge at home to somewhere where I can't, then obviously I'd be looking at the facilities in that area. You know, is it busy? Is it quiet? What's it got? You know, what are the shops? What is it exactly, what's it got, and what's the charging situation? So there's a big advantage for flat owners, apartment owners, to put in charging infrastructure of which they can get grants from the government. It's really no different to petrol companies get grants from government to put in EV chargers and then charge a ridiculous amount. It's the same for employers. There are grants available for employers to put in the charging infrastructure so people who drive to work can charge their vehicles up. It's very simple. There's a very good video on the Fully Charged show from Jack Scarlett. He lives in London, and he can't charge at home, and his routine is very, very simple for charging. There is a charger outside his house. It's not always available, and then he goes a little bit further and has a coffee, and it's a very good video. I think he did it about a year ago, and it's very, very simple, and he has no problem with it. I think the reality is that most people don't realise just how many public chargers there are around them. Now, in some cases, and some of the petrol companies have been guilty of this, they only put in one. So if it's being used, you can't use it. But the modern approach now is putting in 10, a dozen and more of the slower chargers in the residential areas where you can charge them at night or during the day. And if you can't charge at home, Charge Place Scotland is 30p kilowatt hour, and I can tell you that that will work out over half the price of petrol or diesel. There's absolutely no question, and it's not much dearer than the price you're actually paying at home. That's an extremely good price. Now if you want a faster charge, you'll pay a little bit more, 38p, but most people don't want that. They want a slow trickle charge, and that's fine. Supermarkets, originally some of them were free. Now there's Tesco and Lidl. You look at the dashboard and it looks so complicated, and there's no need for this, or you don't go in the shop and have to get an app to buy a tin of beans or any of that. You don't have to tell them how old you are and all this nonsense. Charging units, it just looked like you need an exam, or you need a 16-year-old expert in IT to tell you what to do, and it's absolute nonsense. All you need to do what GridServe did, used to be quite cheap but a bit more expensive, is present your credit card. That's all you want. And the reason the companies are doing this with all this information, it's giving them information, and information is money, and all you want to do is put some electricity charge in your car, and it can tell you what the price is, but they're not going to do that. Maybe it needs government intervention.
Yes, it's really nice.
Now Scotland are lucky, they have Charge Place Scotland at great prices, 30p a kilowatt hour for the slower chargers, 38 for the fasters, and that's all you need. I mean, the average person only drives 50 miles a day. And if you can charge at home, I know I did say that if you can't, it's a trickle charge. It's about 10 miles, 11 miles an hour. So if you got in at 8 at night and left, if you got in at 6 at night and left at 8 in the morning, you could probably put in about 140 miles of charge at the slow trickle rate. Now, with Octopus Energy, between 12:30 at night till 5:30, it's only 7p a kilowatt hour. And you might need the faster charger because you could probably only put about 50 miles in during that time, but it's up to you. There are people, for instance, I did see on the Zap Map home where some people said a contribution. So you phone them up, maybe they're just down the road. You say, well, what is the deal then? How much are you going to charge? £5 for an hour's charging, 2 hours charging? Whatever it is, and then you can quickly work out the sums and see just how much it's going to cost. So the conclusion is that if I was going to move and I couldn't charge at home, would I go back to a nice car? And the answer is absolutely not. Never doing that, because driving a clean vehicle, a silent vehicle, apart from the noise from the tyres, never going back. If you're thinking of buying a new Tesla, you can get them from around about £12,000. And I wouldn't be put off by the high mileage. 100,000 miles is a lot for a petrol car, not so much for diesel, but for electric Tesla, I wouldn't be put off by that at all. It's still going to have hundreds of thousands of miles left. If you're thinking of buying a new Tesla, you can get £1,000 off. And there is a link. There'll be a link somewhere up here. I'll leave. Please use that. But if you don't want a new one, then used is fine. So anyway, yeah, folks, never going back to petrol cars. Tell me what you think. Thanks for watching. I hope you can subscribe and like, and see you next time. Bye.